Hello everybody. In this video, we will try to see what are the different professions at Vishakha Energy can be really into. You know, by seeing the professions, you can also understand the energy that is actually associated with Vishakha Nakshatra. So, alcohol and liquor industry basically, and manual laborers, because manual laborers every day they try to achieve something. They're running after some achievements, right? When they do something, then only they can get some money. So that energy you can associate with Vishakha. And fashion models and actresses also, because they are into materialistic things. All professions involving use of speech like TV and radio broadcasters. So this kind of thing comes into the picture because when it is Vishakha third pada, the planet generally goes into a sign of Gemini. So that's where this kind of prediction is also coming into the picture. And politicians, of course, the Gemini sign is very much famous for politicians as well, especially the Arudra region and the Gemini, right? So that's why the Gemini is associated with not only with TV, radio broadcasting, all the stuff, but also with politicians. That's why Vishakha third pada generally associated with this kind of thing, uh, but overall the Vishakha energy you can associate with this. So marching bands, sports persons, especially sports requiring some kind of lot of extravagant, or you can say peak efforts, right? So ideological fanatics, religious fundamentals, because the religion aspect is coming into the picture because of this Jupiter energy, lot of Jupiter energy. Professional agitators, soldiers, dancers, because of that Martian energy. Wherever you see that Martian energy, you can find this one. The critics, criminals, and mafia, because when there is a lot of Martian energy, then obviously, are emotionally imbalanced. Somewhere in Vishakha 4, we saw it is starting in the sign of Scorpio. See, the overall horoscope is to be checked, but you can understand the Vishakha fourth energy in the Navamsha, it is falling into Cancer. So there is an uh, emotional energy there, right, coming to the picture. So Vishakha 4 can become psychologically disturbed more compared to any other area in the whole nakshatra system. Vishakha 4 is very sensitive. Thereby, the Martian energy is also involved here in the Scorpio sign. So, obviously, the criminals and mafia stuff you can understand, and custom and immigration officials, even the policing jobs, right? The guards, and of course, because of this excessive alcoholism, and when it is too much malefic, there is an excessive sexuality. So you can understand some illegal activities related to sexuality also can be related with Vishakha, right? And militant revolutionaries, a lot of revolutionary thinking is present here because they have that aspect of jealousy and a agony, or whatever you name it. So the envy, right, such kind of negative words you can associate with Vishakha energy. So ultimately you can find they can get easily get jealous of the people around them by comparing the achievements, and even more they want to achieve more and more, right? So thereby you can associate some kind of negative things here. So you can find them in almost all types of professions, but these are the energies that are actually associated with them, right? Of course, you need to check the 10th lord, 6th lord, which they can be into, or they are interested into, or they have to be in, like that you can try with the horoscope. But usually they have a tendency to switch professions also throughout their lives, right? Because they want to achieve something, and then they want to achieve some other thing, right? and once they achieve something, they have a doubt that is that the same thing that I wanted to achieve, right? This kind of confusion, they also have a bit of confusion. So it's generally predicted that Vishakha natives, they switch professions, they are into multiple professions. That is one thing. So the places, if you want to associate with them, the rocky rough terrains, mountains, big cities like New York, because their ambitions are like that, right? Of course, the path that they choose can be very bad. The bars, liquor stores, the local bars, right? The theaters, the amusement, not completely amusement places. You just be very. You should have some boundary here in thinking, because they don't like all the amusement places. They like the local bars, the alcoholism, right? The dominance, the alcoholism is the key area here. So liquor shops, and of course illegal sexual activity places, theaters, military bases, ceremonial halls and grounds, a kind of functions but with some negative energy. And of course interrogation rooms, some danger areas either in the city or designated by the military. So all places connected with these kind of professions, right? So you can understand the energy here. To an extent it is negative, that is the only disadvantage. So if you are having some Vishakha energy, definitely you should perform some propitiations for better life. And then if you understand, uh, the nakshatra basically is sattvic nakshatra, right? It has the sattva guna, but of course the path they choose is just because of the excessive thoughts about the materialistic things. So sattva guna is present in this particular nakshatra, because they have the capacity for hard work and penance, right? So Vishakha is ready to sacrifice a lot for the attainment of its goals. The sacrificing nature is always present. They can sacrifice even their, even they trouble their dear ones. That's what we discussed in the previous video. So a person who can trouble the dear ones just for some material achievements, just imagine how much how much they are goal oriented, right? So they can sacrifice so many things for the attainment of goals. So equality, which is seen as a sattvic, right, in the sattvic perspective, but in the age of Kali, it's going completely negative, right? So Vishakha's sattvic quality is more liable to come out when planets like, just say, Sun, Moon, and Jupiter occupy this nakshatra. They become very much sacrificing when Sun, Moon, and Jupiter present in the Vishakha nakshatra. You can say they are sacrificing in nature to an extent. Of course, whatever negative qualities we discussed, they are present, but if the horoscope is balanced, then you can have a some reduction of these negative qualities as well. And so Sun, Moon, Jupiter, right, when they present, they have the sacrificing nature, and what they sacrifice, for what they sacrifice, and those things can be judged by other planets in the horoscope, right? So as we discussed, they put the dear ones into the trouble for their own attainment. So it's something like sacrificing their love for the attainment of goals, you can say. So it belongs to a kind of fiery element when you talk about the elements. So because see, you see the deity here, Indra and Agni, two deities. Agni is one of the presiding deities here, so obviously it is related to fire element. So fire becomes the primary element when you talk about Vishakha. It is considered as a Rakshasa nakshatra as well, a demonic nakshatra. The Sattva guna, as we talk, with respect to the sacrificing nature, you can say it's a Sattva guna, but at the same time, it is a demonic nakshatra as well. So basic nature and traits, if you observe, it's very common that you can say it's a demonic nakshatra as well. So, a complete disregard for others is considered as a demonic quality. For attainment of goals, just disregarding everyone is a kind of demonic quality, and Vishakha is, you know, it displays this kind of quality, right? Uh, so, it's because of its selfish approach, right, that it is classified as demonic, even though uh, the deities ruling it is are actually the demigods Indra and Agni. They're the most powerful demigods, but still it is treated as a demonic nakshatra because of this one. See, someone is having lot of he's very goal oriented. It doesn't mean that he is always a good person, right? So just imagine he is hurting others in the course of achieving those goals, right? So such a kind of energy you can see here. So disregarding everybody for selfishness, you can say, but we may not think it as a selfishness, but for the outer people, for the people seeing from outside, you can really judge it, this energy. And you can say the auspicious activities you can perform on the day of Vishakha Nakshatra, that is when moon is in Vishakha Nakshatra, that day is called as a Vishakha Nakshatra day. So, aggressive or warlike activities, right? So, those are very good to start on Vishakha Nakshatra day. Any activity requiring some kind of executive ability, they have this executive ability, right? So, getting things done which require an argumentative approach, and harsh activities in general you can perform on the day of Vishakha. So, any activity requiring strong mental focus, see, they disregard everybody, even the dear ones. Just imagine how much of mental focus they have. So, working toward one's goals, all types of ceremonies, functions, and parties, awards, or decoration ceremonies, right? So, dressing up or decorating oneself, or romance or sexual activity, performing penance, if you want to make any resolutions or any kind of new things that you want to perform, you can perform on the day of Vishakha, because without, whether there are obstacles present or not, right, you can just uh, you can just ignore them, because that is the energy, unstoppable energy. Even they disregard everybody. The inauspicious activities, it's not a good nakshatra for traveling, it's not a good nakshatra for marriage, not a good nakshatra for initiations, some kind of initiations, right? So activities requiring some kind of diplomacy, some kind of cunningness, that's not very good on this day, because this nakshatra uh, is something like, is a decoration oriented, is also decoration oriented. It's very good, but marriage is not good, even though its symbolism is related to marriage, right? So, like people say, better you don't perform marriage, because when you marry a person, you should not disregard that person, right? So, disregarding other people is a kind of negative thing, and that should not happen in marriage. So, if you try to celebrate, if you try to marry on that day, these things may happen. That's the prediction, right? So marriage is not a good thing on that day, and initiation also, some kind of initiations, like, just imagine if you want to disregard everybody, such kind of initiation you can do on that day of Vishakha. But if you want to disregard everyone, if you don't want to disregard everybody, then don't start on that day, right? That is one of the fundamental things. So, if you talk about the planetary energies here, Venus, Mars, Ketu, and Jupiter, you know, they have, so the planetary influences are connected to this Vishakha Nakshatra: Venus, Mars, Ketu, Jupiter, right? So, Jupiter is the main ruler of this particular nakshatra, of course. Venus, Mars, Ketu, you know, they generally have this kind of energy associated with this particular nakshatra, right? So if you observe Venus, Mars, Ketu, right? So these energies are always present in the Vishakha energy. So Jupiter connects to this particular nakshatra through Indra, basically, right? Because the preceptor is Brihaspati, right? So for Indra, so Jupiter supports most of Indra's objectives and ambitions because he is a Deva Guru, right? Basically, so and Indra is nothing but a Deva, is a uh, is for a leader for gods, you could say, right? Um, Leader for demigods, right? So Brihaspati or this Jupiter is very much connected with Indra. So even Indra tried to do some ungodly activities, unwholesome activities. Just then also Jupiter supports. That's why Jupiter became the lord of this nakshatra, right? So its natural benevolence, grace, and good fortune can be used uh, for extravagance under the influence of this nakshatra, basically. So Venus, Jupiter's counterpart, is basically Venus is uh, a Daitya Guru and Jupiter is a Deva Guru. So it's connected with the first three padas of Vishakha because Venus is the ruler of Libra sign and first three padas of Vishakha are in Libra. It is a natural, uh, it's a kind of the balancing between these two energies, right? Between the Vishakha, between this Jupiter and Venus, uh, it's very difficult balancing between Venus and Jupiter because those two are the most powerful planets, you can say, uh, most powerful and at the same time completely opposite goals they have, right? So balancing them is a kind of turbulence. It's a big turbulence. That's the turbulence associated with this nakshatra. So a lot of Indra's Venusian excesses, as enumerated in numerous Puranic stories, right, are actually not agreeable by Jupiter, right? So, but still, right, as Indra is connected to Jupiter, Jupiter is connected to Indra, so that's where, there is a kind of edge, you can always say. There's a kind of threshold, right? So, where the turbulence is always present and the balance is always required. It goes without saying that Indra lands into some sort of trouble each time because Indra has that excessive Venusian requirements, right? So that's where he actually lies into the trouble. The same thing applies to Vishakha energy as well. In the fourth pada, if you observe, Mars co-rules along with the Jupiter. So the energy is more sorted out, but uh, has a kind of military tone added to this particular nakshatra, right? So till Libra, it's only Venus and Jupiter, but here Jupiter and Mars, finding the balance between this Mars and Jupiter, because Mars rules Scorpio and Vishakha nakshatra's lord is Jupiter. So Jupiter and Mars balance. This is a kind of, it's not a balance, you can say, but you are adding the Martian quality to the Jupiter. So, and of course, Ketu has an influence on Scorpio, even in, if you talk about some other planets like Pluto. Pluto also has an influence on Scorpio. So Ketu, Pluto, right? So such energies also you can add to Vishakha because when you talk about Scorpio, you talk about Mars, you talk about Ketu, you talk about Pluto, right? The energies of Scorpio are like that. So Pluto, Ketu, Mars added to Jupiter is a kind of adding some kind of psychic behavior to it. So Vishakha 4 that's where it's very sensitive area. A great deal of impulsiveness, explosive drama, self-destructiveness added to the Vishakha 4th pada. See, only when this particular whole thing, if it is channeled in a very great way, that means if Jupiter is very well placed for Vishakha fourth pada, then they can do wonders, they can do wonders, right? So anything whatever they pick up, right, that's a very great energy for any kind of transformation, right? So Vishakha 4 always has to check the Jupiter's position, right? That's what we discussed in our previous video as well. So Venus, Jupiter, Venus, Mars, Venus, Mars, Ketu, Jupiter, Mars, right? The Jupiter, Mars, Ketu, Venus is all the conjunctions if you observe, right? So because Venus and Jupiter, Jupiter is a lord of this nakshatra and Venus is the lord of Libra, so there's an amalgamation of these two energies and balancing them is very difficult. So whenever you see Venus and Jupiter conjunction, there is a tendency that energy turns into a Vishakha ascendant. If you find any chart having Venus and Jupiter conjunction, that acts like a Vishakha's energy. And even Venus Mars, right? That Venus Mars Ketu, right? So Jupiter Mars Ketu Venus, all these this combination, these conjunctions actually carry energy similar to the Vishakha energy. So Jupiter generally functions well when Jupiter is placed in Vishakha. Yes, they have that kind of, they can get that balance because Jupiter has that wisdom to do what they actually have to do, right? So generally you say when Jupiter is in Vishakha, it's fine, the Vishakha is controlled, right? So this is what we can say, and we can talk much more about this nakshatra. There is a we can talk about the famous Radha Krishna love, right? It actually exemplifies the Vishakha's inner core, right? So that is why Vishakha is also called as Radha in ancient times, right? Radha was already married to someone when she fell in love with Krishna actually, and romanced him in his childhood years. But since Krishna was actually the Vishnu's incarnation, right? Krishna is one of the incarnations of Vishnu, Lord Vishnu. So this was not an ordinary love. You just think God fell in love with someone, right? So that's not an ordinary one, and fell in love with someone who was already married, right? So it is actually a peak of desire, you can say. It's a desire on Radha's part to merge with universal energies, because Krishna is a big universal energy. So from Radha also, the Radha actually right, is actually a lot of love on Krishna, right? You can say it's not Krishna falling in love with Radha. You can say Radha fell in love with Krishna. You can say that. Because God can treat everybody, God can control, God can treat everybody same, God can control any kind of emotion. God can have that capacity. Even I was born as a human, right? That quality is still present, right? So there was a purpose, that's why God was born as a human. So here Radha actually fell in love with Krishna, even she was already married. So it's something like you can see here the desire to get involved into the universal energy, to get merge with the universal energy, to merge with the godly energy is also present here. So it's not as an inferior, but as a love, right? Vishakha's longing for perfection and enlightenment is always expressed in terms of love and relationships. So this is also one of the important things. So they are perfectionists in Vishakha's energy because they want more perfectionism. That's why, so when you have more perfectionism, that's where you can achieve something great, a material achievement. right? So this kind of longing for something, right, is also present. So you can always see Vishaka's longing for perfection and enlightenment is always expressed. So in terms of love and relationships. So and this kind of is a, if you observe the story, as Radha was already married, so again is the society. Falling in love with someone after marriage is again is the society. So the love and relationship that we are discussing here in the Vishaka's energy is also again is the society. There's a trouble here also. The Indra landing into some trouble is actually seen here also, right? So Vishaka does not, they cannot distinguish between fun and pain of such relationships. They actually, may take them as fun, but there is a chance of getting into troubles because of such energy, right? Because of such energy, they may try to land up, they may land up in some troubles, right? So pain of such relationships uh, is very high. So the intense spiritual practice leading to knowledge and enlightenment is also seen here, uh, because the spiritual practice that they do is also very much intense, right? So there is no boundaries at all, right? You can understand. So above all, you can say uh, its ultimate goal is experiencing the divine here, right? Through some materiality, right? So just imagine, what if a Vishakha person just come out of the shackles of materialistic things, right? So he may try to get into the spiritual practice very intensively. So that is also there. So they want a relationship with divine. Just imagine. So with the divine itself, someone wants to have a relationship with divine, is a kind of, in spirituality also, it's a kind of you know peak. You can understand. So it's the 16th nakshatra, basically Vishakha. So it relates to the number 16. When you see the number 16, right? It's a number of tragedy, basically. It's a number of turmoil. It's a number of ruin. It's a self-destruction. Destruction and ruin here is actually. So here clearly you can understand uh, it's tragedy related. Destruction and ruin here is only of that which stands against the universal will, right? So it becomes evident that Vishakha's path is not all romance and very good. If you observe the story of Radha, right? It's not a very, Vishakha is not a very soft path. The energy itself is not a soft path. It's a turbulence is present, a pain is present, right? So that's where Vishakha is very sensitive, you can say. So see, Radha spent a major part of her life uh, pining for Krishna after he felt for taking care of the purpose behind his incarnation, you can say, right? So, this kind of intense longing and the pain of separation, right, is really it's a kind of painful, right? So the fire of love burning regardless of the outer circumstances, regardless of the society's norms and conditions, firing the burn of love, uh, irrespective of anything, is a kind of painful thing. So, of course, once they cross all these pains and things, they can achieve something great. But at the same time, the path is not so fine. So the power to make and manifest or achieve is very much good in this particular nakshatra, right? So just imagine it is regarding everything for the attainment of some goal, for the materialistic things, just going ahead with the plan, uh, it's a kind of, they have a strong will, they have a lot of power to make things happen, right? That is also, you need to understand, that is the main power that Vishakha has. It can be on the other side, it seems to be a kind of selfishness, but on the other side of the coin you can say the power that can ignore anything and go running after the achievement. So this makes it a fruitful nakshatra on the material plane, obviously. So its spiritual path is completely, it's not very much enhanced in this one. But if you observe the whole horoscope, and if the person can come out of that materialism, then they can achieve the spiritual heights also at the same level. They have that capacity. So the material results here usually come with persistent and patient effort. So they have the patience to do hard work. They have the patience to sacrifice anything. They have the patience to win, right? So you just see the finest wine takes a long time to be ready, right, for consumption. After the once the brewing process is done, once everything is done, it's so much of, after so much of longing, the wine becomes very great, right? So that kind of longing is always present. Kind of hurdles, kind of patience, hard working, disregarding everything, ignoring everything, sacrificing so many things is the path of Vishakha. So we'll try to talk about Vishakha more in our next video. Some of the remedial things or whatever, we'll talk about that in our in some other video. Thanks for watching this video.